Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something kind of fun. We're peeling back that invisible, magic veneer of the cloud to reveal the very real, massive physical infrastructure that's hiding right behind our screens. We throw around the word cloud all the time, right? It makes our digital lives feel totally weightless. But the reality? Well, it's actually incredibly grounded.
So ask yourself, when you save a photo, or stream a movie, or draft a quick document, where does that data actually go? We've been completely conditioned to imagine it just sort of floating up there in the sky, completely immaterial. But here's the truth. Every single digital action you take has a very real physical footprint. Just think about the physical cost of our everyday habits for a second. Get this. It's estimated that ChatGPT consumes about 1 plastic water bottle's worth of water for every 100-word email it generates. Pretty crazy, right? Suddenly, the cloud doesn't seem quite so invisible anymore. These AI models we're relying on more and more every single day require absolutely massive amounts of physical resources just to function. When we actually contrast our ethereal, floaty idea of the internet with reality, the whole illusion just shatters. The internet doesn't live in the sky. It lives in huge, resource-hungry concrete warehouses packed with thousands of humming servers. These are basically the physical engines powering the 21st century, and keeping our digital world turning requires a staggering amount of space, power, and cooling.
Section 1, Ground Zero, Data Center Alley.
To really understand the sheer scale of this, we've got to travel to Northern Virginia. It is the undisputed global epicenter of this digital infrastructure, and it is incredibly clustered. While there's definitely growth happening in other places, nearly 80% of these massive facilities are packed into just 3 Northern Virginia counties: Loudoun, Prince William, and Fairfax. Believe it or not, this one specific region handles an estimated 70% of the entire world's internet traffic. So, the crucial takeaway here is just the mind-boggling scale of this concentration. Northern Virginia alone houses 13% of all reported data center capacity on the entire planet. Let that sink in. Not just the US, the entire world. Let's break those wild numbers down into a physical footprint you can actually visualize. Across Virginia, we're looking at roughly 150 data center sites, housing around 340 distinct buildings. That is over 63 million square feet of space, covering 7,200 acres of land. To put that into perspective, that's nearly the size of Virginia's largest state park, literally paved over with concrete boxes, just completely dedicated to storing our digital lives.
Section 2, the resource drain, power, and water.
And land is really just the beginning. The intense resource demands are what's truly reshaping the region. Right now, data center sites in Virginia are estimated to use approximately 5,050 megawatts of power. But, a megawatt is a pretty abstract concept for most of us. What does that actually mean for the local power grid?
Well, it basically means the data center industry in Virginia is pulling the equivalent electricity needs of 2 million local households. That is about 60% of all the households in the entire state. The state's energy demand was honestly pretty flat for over a decade. But now, thanks to these centers, it is surging, which means they've got to build massive new transmission lines and infrastructure just to keep up. And they don't just need power, they are incredibly thirsty. Computer servers generate intense heat, and many use evaporative cooling to prevent a meltdown. It's essentially like the buildings are sweating. Currently, during the peak summer months, data centers use about 8% of the water drawn from the Potomac River basin. But if this growth continues completely unconstrained, projections show they could drain up to 33% of the region's primary drinking water source by 2050. Section 3, Hyperlocal Impacts, Noise, Land, and Health. So, what does this mean for the people who live right next door to the cloud? Well, data centers produce this constant industrial noise. It usually sits right between 40 and 59 decibels. Now, on paper, that doesn't sound incredibly loud. It's roughly similar to a strong household air conditioner. But the catch is that it never, ever stops. This persistent 24/7 industrial hum can actually cause sleep disturbance, general annoyance, and even long-term health stressors for nearby residents. And that noise is becoming a bigger issue because these facilities are creeping closer and closer to neighborhoods. Right now, 29% of operational data center properties in Virginia are within just 200 feet of residential zoning. In some cases, these giant industrial complexes are going up right next to single-family homes and even elementary schools. This kind of proximity brings up some really serious community trade-offs. Beyond just the noise, there are valid concerns about air pollution from the massive diesel generators they need for backup power. There's also a rapid loss of green space. With nearly 21,000 new acres proposed for development, the industry is increasingly pushing into rural land and even targeting areas immediately adjacent to protected spaces like Prince William Forest and the Manassas Battlefield National Park.
Section 4, the economic counterweight. So, you're probably wondering, why on earth are local communities accepting these risks? Well, the answer is an absolutely enormous economic windfall. Just look at the massive disparity in the tax reality for Loudoun County. Data centers effectively fund close to half of the local government's property tax revenue. If data centers just suddenly vanish tomorrow, the residential real estate tax rate would have to practically double, jumping from just over 80 cents to $1.53 per $100 of assessed value, just to keep basic county services running. To make that abstract rate deeply personal for a second, that tax revenue saves the typical Loudoun County homeowner an estimated $5,800 every single year. That is a massive financial cushion. It lowers the cost of living and keeps local housing markets highly competitive. It's a very real, very tangible benefit that has to be weighed against that physical footprint. However, this financial equation is constantly shifting. Actually, Virginia recently became the very first state to implement a tax specifically on the power these data centers consume. See, while the industry brings in massive local tax revenue, it also forces states to shell out to upgrade their broader electrical grids. So this new tax is kind of an experimental step toward making sure these tech giants are helping offset the immense infrastructure costs they create for the wider public.
Section 5, the AI acceleration.
But here's the thing. This really delicate balance between resource drain and financial gain, it's about to be put to the ultimate test. The key driver of this future is the GPU, or graphics processing unit. Because these processors are handling massive AI workloads, they consume significantly more power than traditional web servers. Driven by this AI boom, the unconstrained demand for power in Virginia is currently projected to absolutely double within the next 10 years. Which really leaves us with the ultimate question. We know now that the cloud is definitely not invisible. It is built of concrete, water, and immense amounts of electricity. So as our demand for AI and digital convenience just continues to grow exponentially, are we as a society willing to continually trade our limited physical resources for infinite digital expansion? It is a heavy cost for lightweight cloud, and honestly, it's a question we all need to start answering.